Hi and welcome to this month's Office Hours video. My name is Dr. Cindy Nebel, and today I'm going to talk to you about something that's a little bit off topic from what we normally talk about. What I want to talk to you about is how to apply the 6 strategies for effective learning to things that are outside the classroom. And I would venture to say that all of us have to continue to learn over our lifespans, right? So a lot of what we talk about is learning in the classroom and sort of formal learning. But in reality, in our everyday jobs, we have to learn new policies and procedures when they come out. Sometimes it's new knowledge. Goodness knows when you start a new job, there's lots of new knowledge that you have to take in. And so the same strategies that we talk about can be applied to a lot of different situations, not just these formal situations where we're trying to teach students very specific information that they can reproduce on an exam or later in life. But there are other situations, like just sitting in a faculty meeting, let's say, where information is being disseminated and we want people to remember what we're telling them. So today I am just going to talk to you about 2 things that I think you should consider when you want to be teaching your colleagues about some of the information even that maybe we're talking about. You want them to use some of the strategies for effective learning in their own classrooms. How do you go about teaching your peers? And so the first one I want to talk about is dual coding. When we talk about dual coding, right, we're talking about combining verbal and visual information. And what that often looks like in faculty meetings is death by PowerPoint, right? Where you have lots of PowerPoint slides that people use to try to do this combination of verbal and visual information. And it turns out that can be done effectively and ineffectively. And I think we've probably all experienced both. But the key here is really for those PowerPoint slides to add to what the person is saying and not subtract from it. So that is, in order to make those visuals effective, they really need to be visual aids. So you don't want redundant information on a slide. That is, you don't necessarily want every word that's coming out of your mouth to be listed up there. Individuals have a difficult time, then do I listening to them or am I looking at the PowerPoint slide? We also want to try to reduce cognitive load. So you don't want too much going on up on the screen because again, they're trying to listen to you and see and take in everything on the screen. So complex charts and graphs are sometimes okay, sometimes necessary, but you really need to take the time to walk through everything that the person is seeing before you really start talking about it so that they're not trying to process 2 things at once. That's usually the problem when individuals are trying to do dual coding but doing it ineffectively, is that they've got a whole lot going on a PowerPoint slide and they're talking at the same time, and it's really difficult for someone to process those things simultaneously. So that's advice number 1. If you're going to use PowerPoint slides, use visuals that are interesting and maybe bullet point ideas, but don't put full sentences on those slides, and make sure any visuals you use are simple visuals or well explained. The second thing I want to talk about is retrieval practice. And this is kind of a funny one to think about when we're working with our colleagues. Certainly in a faculty meeting, it probably wouldn't go very well if at the end of the meeting you said, okay, and now we're going to take a quiz over what we've just discussed to make sure that you all understood it. Probably going to come across a little condescending, not going to be well received in some spaces maybe. But there are still ways where you can try to get individuals to retrieve the information in a little bit more of a sly way. So for retrieval practice to work, all you really need to do is to get people to bring stuff to mind. They don't necessarily have to take a quiz. They don't necessarily have to write it down, but they have to bring it to mind in order to have maybe a conversation about it. And so my suggestion would be to think creatively about how you can get individuals to do that, even within sort of a faculty meeting situation. One idea might be to start a faculty meeting by saying, last time we talked about blank. So for the first few minutes here, what we'd like for you to do is get with a partner, talk to the person next to you, and just talk about the ways in which you've used that over the last month or whatever. During that time, they have to bring to mind what it is that you guys discussed a month ago, and then talk about how they've been using it. So they're engaging in some amount of retrieval practice there. Maybe not a ton, but you've got some spacing going on, a little bit of retrieval going on. So we're engaging them in a more active learning process than simply giving that information once and leaving it alone. So again, sort of like asking them to engage in a conversation is one way to do this. Even a conversation, a one-on-one conversation where you say, hey, I really thought that thing we talked about was interesting. What did you think about it? Simply asking them that sort of reflective listening requires them to bring that information to mind. They're more likely to remember it later on. So if you want them to remember the stuff that you are talking about, that's one way that you can maybe make that information a little bit more fresh for individuals. So again, mostly today, I just wanted to get you thinking about the fact that these 6 strategies for effective learning can absolutely be used throughout our lives, and not just for the sort of formal education situations that we're often thinking and talking about. And so even thinking about, like I said, faculty meetings or training and development, and how we can enhance our learning, our adult learning, using these 6 strategies is a worthwhile endeavor. So I hope that's useful for you.